School Attacker Response Course. This is the instructor development for the School Attacker Response Course. This is like the 6th one of these I think we've done. The end of March. And I want to make sure that you guys understand the background of the program and what the program is trying to accomplish. The course was really born in mid-December, mid to late December last year as a direct response to questions from students and other people on the interwebs there after the Newtown killings in Connecticut in December of last year. Right away, it was pretty obvious that there was going to be some political fallout from that for the firearm side, and it became very obvious that a lot of people had questions about what to do about those situations, how to address those situations in terms of safety and security for schools and kids. And right away, kind of like our side, the firearm side, primarily that's what IC Training Company does, obviously is work with firearms training at one level or another, whether it's military, law enforcement, or a lot of personal defense, home defense stuff. The reaction was, well, let's arm teachers. We're here in Florida. I think maybe somebody in this room, somebody has recently forwarded me a deal about the Florida legislature advancing a bill for law enforcement or for teachers to be carrying firearms down here in Florida. And of course Utah already allows it. There's some other pockets around the country where it's allowed. There's nothing wrong with that. As I've said in many media interviews over the last 4 months, I don't think anybody's right to carry a firearm should be restricted because they go to work. So whether that's somebody who works in a courthouse, or somebody who works in a school, or somebody who works in a hospital, or somebody who works in a convenience store, or wherever, they should be able to defend themselves. And if they choose to have a firearm as part of that process, good for them. If they're a responsible owner, if they're responsibly trained, no problem. That said, we are a long way off from armed teachers. And there's a whole bunch of teachers that don't want to be armed. So I think on December 20th, jump up and down about teachers should be armed and that's what's going to save our kids, doesn't really help save kids on December 21st. So there were a lot of reactions of, well, we're going to give free classes to teachers, which is great. If you run firearms training and you want to give free classes to anybody, that's cool. But if you're not really helping, if those teachers can't carry guns in school, if those teachers aren't willing to fight the fight so that they can carry guns in school, again, I don't know that you're actually solving the problem. You're getting more people aware of responsible firearms ownership and use, that's great, but there was a moment there where everybody was giving free classes to teachers, and I don't know that they were really addressing the problem of safety in schools. So it's been several months now, a few months, and the attention to this problem has gone away. I don't get media calls for interviews. At one point I was doing 3, 4, 5, 6 calls a week. No one's talking about guns in schools, safety in schools now at nearly the level they were talking about it in December or January. But you guys are still here, and there are still a lot of people asking about the SARC program, and there's still a lot of instructors who have been certified over the past few months who are teaching at a local level, whether it's at the school systems or just groups of teachers getting together. So this program is 100% free. You're not authorized to charge any money for it. I'm not charging any money for it. You're not being charged for any money today for the instructor course. We're putting a lot of the information out for free on the internet. We've taped a DVD inside of the Personal Defense Network series that we're going to take a whole big pile of copies and send out to schools and teachers, hopefully starting in April, maybe May at the latest. So we're going to continue to put this information out. I think this information is important. And at first, I really didn't want to throw my hat or ICE Training's hat into that ring and say, oh, we can solve this problem. We understand active shooter response, we understand unarmed defense against an armed attacker, we understand evacuation, barricade, all that stuff, but there's plenty of people who do, and there's plenty of people who are out there teaching it, and there's other great programs. The ALERT program out of Texas is probably the one I've recommended the most over the last few years, not only for law enforcement training, but also to teach a proactive response to teachers and students. The ALICE program has a component of proactive response. So there are programs out there. The reason that ICE Training Company has the SARC program can be traced back to one specific question. And the specific question, and I forget if it was Facebook post, email, whatever it was, what do I tell my kids today when they come home from school? It was the day of the event, and there was a lot of talk and chatter all over the internet, but that one question stood out. What do I tell my kids today when they come home about this situation? And I thought, okay, I'm going to take a few minutes to answer that question as best I can. And I answered the question in an article or an essay online and then posted around, and it got a lot of traction. And then I got asked if I was going to be teaching anything along these lines, and I had the opportunity to teach the program at a martial arts school in Ohio to a group of kids the Tuesday after the event. So I went ahead and taped it and taught it and started talking about really making this program formally available under ICE training to help solve the short-term problem of what can we do, what information can we give teachers and students right away to help them deal with this situation, help them be prepared for this worst-case scenario situation. So like most of the ICE training company courses, this is considered a counter-ambush course. This isn't a course about profiling, it isn't a course about deterrence, except incidental deterrence, which we'll talk about. It's not a program help to identify the threat or stop the threat from ever showing up. It's dealing with today there is an attacker in the school, probably with a gun, trying to kill teachers and students right now. And in fact, we even go as far as to say coming into the classroom you're in. Because this is the problem, is that the historical answer, the answer of hide and hope, the lockdown answer, has worked 99.99999% of the time. Right? 99.99999% of the kids who have been locked down, quote unquote, in their rooms, behind a door, being quiet, up against the wall, out of view, have survived unscathed. So when you play the numbers game, hide and hope looks great. The problem is, as far as I can tell, unless the bad guy decided not to hurt a kid that was in a room that was under a lockdown policy, every kid that's been in a room and every teacher that's been in a room that's come into contact with the bad guy has been under threat of lethal force. And many, 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 many of them have been injured and killed because they had no other option. They were given no other option other than hide and hope. And the problem is that's a flip of the coin. If the bad guy goes left and goes into that classroom, you've got nothing. But the people on that side of the hallway, in that classroom, and that classroom, and that classroom, and that classroom are fine because they were using the lockdown policy. So on a numbers basis, on a statistics basis, lockdown works for the majority of the people, and it's passive. So it's got this inertia inside of the educational world. We need to be giving the kids and the teachers more than hide and hope for the moment that the bad guy comes into their room.
Evade. Don't be where the bad guy is or be out of the line of attack.
Barricade. Barricade is something that can make it harder for an attacker to get into a position to harm teachers and children.
In the case that the attacker does enter the room, we have the responsibility to do something. We can't just sit and do nothing. We have to do something to respond to that attack.
Weaknesses of the attacker are affect his vision, affect his breathing, affect his mobility, affect his cognitive control, or take his tool away from him.
Preventing injury, do what you need to do within the context of the situation to prevent injury to yourself and to your students. Distracting the attacker, find something that you can do to distract him from his objective while he's in the room. And disable the attacker is remove his ability to